And here we have Young Justice, a show focusing on young DC heroes as they go through the trials and tribulations of life. The show has evolved a lot since its first season up to now with Young Justice Phantoms, and while I don't think it's been the best execution, I do think Young Justice Phantoms is an overall good season. Let's start off by focusing on the good points of Young Justice Phantoms. The storylines this season had were chopped up into 6 little bits that eventually came to a conclusion at the end. I think this was a fairly well execution. Having 6 storylines that focused on 1 or 2 of the original members of the team in Season 1 really helped curb the overall storyline for the season, helped us keep focused and keep on track, and the fact it all came together in the end was actually having on the edge of my seat every week. There were also a number of social topics that were touched upon this season that really caught me off guard. You had things such as religion and then autism. The fact that they had these things in the show really made it feel adult, that they were kind of growing with the audience. Really caught me off guard. In addition to that, going over all these social topics really helped us feel as though that these heroes just kind of have it rough. All this time in the spotlight, all this time fighting bad guys can really take the toll on people both physically and mentally. And I like the fact that Young Justice took the time to really showcase how that happens. I mean, Beast Boy going through depression was just so hard to watch, but I also felt like it was really necessary because he had so much trauma he just needed to get past.
I don't need a trapeze artist. I need a detective.
Now that we've talked about the good parts of Young Justice Phantoms, let's go over the things I think make this season a little weak. First will be the story presentation. Now I mentioned that I think the overall story is pretty good, and I still attest to that. I also think the overall story cut into 6 arcs was a good idea. However, there were too many storylines in between all of that really helped fill out the season, and for the most part, it wasn't executed all that well. A good example of this was the storyline going with Halo, who we saw in various scenes throughout the season. While I do like the fact they focused on Halo trying to reconnect with their Muslim faith, I don't see how this really fit into this season at all. It didn't fit into the overall storyline dealing with the Zods, it didn't really fit into any of the 6 arcs or even the arc it was in, so I don't get why it was added. Halo was even a central character this season. When Zatara discussed his Christian fate with Dr. Fate, at least it made sense in the context of the arc, but what's going on with Halo just didn't fit. There are too many storylines filling up the season that just didn't really fit. Another good example of this is what's going on with Beyond and the Infinitors. I mean, why bring up what's going on with Beyond if you're not even going to solve it? We were left with the last scene just being told, or potentially being told what's going on, but now we don't know what's going on with Beyond, and we have to wait until next season to figure it out? Why did you even bring it up? It wasn't relevant to the storyline at all. I can appreciate the attempt the writers made with all these storylines and progressive topics, and while I do like that they included them, it became way too much of a cluster. Some got nice execution like depression storylines, and some just didn't really get the focus that they needed, or honestly just didn't belong in this season. If you wanted to focus on Halo, you really should have talked about it in Season 3 when that character was the focus.
I'm searching for answers to so many questions, but maybe we can start with the hijab?
The second problem has to be the overabundance of characters seen in Young Justice Phantoms. When Young Justice first started, it focused on a group of teens who were misplaced in the hero world and wanted to make their mark. While it was natural while the seasons go on, more and more characters would be added, it became way too unbalanced by the time we reached Phantoms. There were too many people and just not enough storylines to fit them all. While I never anticipated the series to completely focus on the original team the entire time, the fact we become so far removed from the original team to these off-brand characters we know nothing about, characters who just randomly show up in one scene you don't see begin till the end of the season or a tease for the next one, it's become way too stuffed. They really need to trim down the fat with these characters if they're going to do a Season 5. The last issue plaguing Phantoms has to be the animation. This show has taken a noticeable downgrade in quality since the first season. For the most part, the animation is serviceable, but there are some times where characters just look stiff. The action scenes look like they're so unnerving and unmoving. It's just sometimes laughable.
Truth, I'd prefer not to fight you.
Ultimately, while I do think Young Justice Phantoms is a relatively strong season for Young Justice as a whole, the season is plagued with a number of issues that need to be addressed as a Season 5. They need to trim down the characters, trim down the storyline, and get a bigger animation budget. Considering how well it seems to do on HBO Max, I'll be surprised if it doesn't get a renewal, but hopefully once it does get the renewal, they get a much larger budget to work with.
I'm glad Johnny's okay, 'cause I'm not.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, try to give a like or leave a comment. If you didn't like what you saw, try to leave me some feedback to see in ways I can improve. Thank you. Have a nice day.